Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're testing out another of the move updates from the Season 17 balance patch, and that is Trailblaze on Ariados. Ariados is a bug and poison type Pokemon with the moveset of Poison Sting, Lunge, and now instead of Cross Poison, it has the coverage move of Trailblaze. Trailblaze can be quite helpful, especially going up against those mud boys like Swampert and Whiscash that previously were a big problem for Ariados. For the team, I decided to run something fun, so we're putting together a spicy squad of Bellibolt and Shadow Dragonair. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's check out Trailblaze Ariados in the Great League. We're off to a tough start in the first match, leading Bellibolt into Shadow Swampert. I save switch into Shadow Dragonair. Opponent is going to stay in this matchup, so I'm going to fire off the Body Slam. These Dragon Breaths are absolutely shredding through the Swampert, and this is a tough call to make. Swamperts love to bait, so I no shield. It's the Hydro Cannon. My opponent now sends in Talonflame, farming up energy with the Dragonair and firing off the Aqua Tail before I get incinerated down. The Aqua Tail will be shielded, and now I can send in Bellibolt, and it's very nice to see the Talonflame here, because Bellibolt will be able to take care of it, whereas obviously Ariados is absolutely walled. Bellibolt able to tank the Flame Charge, make it to the Discharge. That is going to be goodbye to the Talonflame. In comes the Swampert. Swampert does have a ton of energy, and I'm farming up with the Ariados. My plan here is I'm going to double shield and then look to over farm quite a bit. My opponent firing off another charge move. I'm just going to keep the Ariados extremely healthy. Opponent sends in a Lanturn in the back. They're running ABA Water, and I have Trailblaze. Trailblaze, super effective damage onto the Lanturn. Ariados making it to Trailblaze number 2. This is doing even more damage than it did before. Trailblaze plus the Poison Sting gets the KO, and the opponent concedes the match. We've got a massive problem in the next match as I lead Bellibolt into Shadow Gliscor. This is a huge core breaker for the team. I save switch into Shadow Dragonair, and my opponent is going to respond with Azumarill. I'm farming up, trying to go for the Body Slam. Unfortunately, the game stutters, triggers the move well after I click it, and it ends up being on alignment, giving the opponent an entire bubble for free. So a bad situation is now even worse because my opponent has extra energy. My plan here is I'm going to shield the Dragonair and then maybe try and pivot back into the Bellibolt, but it's going to be tough. My opponent is over farming with the Azu, so I'm going to fire off another Body Slam. Is my switch clock up yet? Not quite. I'm farming up. Switch clock is finally up. I'm able to save the Dragonair and switch back into the Bellibolt. They fire off the Ice Beam with the Azu. They farm up a little bit of energy, and in comes the Gliscor. This is not enough for an Earthquake, so I can confidently no-shield the Night Slash. The opponent is actually running Sand Tomb on the Gliscor. I'm able to make it to the Zap Cannon. This is single resisted, but Zap Cannon is a very powerful move that does massive damage to the Gliscor and gets the attack drop as well. Gliscor will fire off the Sand Tomb. That will secure the knockout of the Bellibolt. I send in the Dragonair, and Dragon Breath will secure the KO. Back in comes the Azumarill. Azumarill firing off energy. I'm going to shield and look for a farm down. They should be energy dry, so I can get a massive farm down here and leave with so much energy. In the back, opponent has Poliwrath. I'm firing off this Body Slam. Body Slam gets the shield, and now it's time. Send in the Ariados. Ariados making it to the Trailblaze and winning the charge attack priority tie. This is super effective damage onto the Shadow Poliwrath. Again, Trailblaze, not the highest base damage move ever, but having the coverage is quite nice. Poliwrath farming up. Poliwrath not going to be able to make it to the Scald that it needs, and this Lunge, despite being resisted, will secure the game. The tough leads continue in the next match, leading Bellibolt into Shadow Quagsire. That is 3 ground types in a row. I'm going to save switch into the Shadow Dragonair. The Quagsire staying in this matchup, and they're going to fire off some energy. I'll shield the potential Mud Bomb. Opponent baits with an Aqua Tail. Oh my goodness, and now they send in Lanturn. Okay, I am extremely confused by that switch, but that tells me that they are extremely weak to the Dragonair. In that case, they definitely would have been better off just staying in with the Quagsire, as Quagsire can do better into the Dragonair than something like the Lanturn. As Lanturn, as you can see, is getting absolutely torn to shreds. Body Slam connects, down goes the Lanturn, in comes the Quagsire, and I'm firing off the Body Slam. Body Slam going to be getting them quite low, so we do see a shield used by the opponent. Opponent looking for the farm down and gets the farm down, but I can send in Ariados here. Ariados, oh my goodness, I have to respect the potential Stone Edge. They don't have it. They go for the Aqua Tail. Well, I guess they could still have it. We'll see. Do they have it? Thankfully, no. It's just going to be a Mud Bomb. In the back is Pelipper. Oh my goodness, and Belly Bolt is about to absolutely feast. This is double super effective damage. Discharge will be shielded. Continuing to farm up is the Belly Bolt. Weather Ball. Belly Bolt can take multiple moves here. Opponent ends up going for the Hurricane, and Hurricane's not going to cut it either. Belly Bolt able to make it to the discharge. Double super effective damage. Down goes the Pelipper. Quagsire forced to throw energy. They're not going to be able to farm down here. And even though I believe I have a lunge stored, I'm running Trailblaze for a reason. Going for the Trailblaze into the small HP Shadow Quagsire, and that's game over. We see our first decent lead in the next match, leading Belly Bolt into Lanturn. The entire team does pretty well into Lanturn, but I don't really want to switch out, as Belly Bolt, considering its mono electric coverage, can get walled pretty easily. I'm going to shield the first and go for the Zap Cannon. Opponent Thunderbolts my electric type, which is a bit of a surprise. I mean, this opponent does have a Legend Post, so they're going to be a pretty decent opponent. My guess is they're just unfamiliar with the typing on Belly Bolt, because it's definitely not a Pokemon that you see every day. It's definitely more of a Pokemon for fun. My opponent doubles down. They go for double Thunderbolt. I'm going to bank a ton of energy and snipe with the Shadow Dragonair. Opponent sends in Medicham, and this is perfectly fine. With the energy lead, I can outpace, make it to the Body Slam. Body Slam is going to get them quite low, so they are going to burn a shield. Medicham looking to overfarm and fire off the Ice Punch. Ice Punch, this is perfectly fine. I'm just going to let the Dragonair go, and I can send in the Ariados. And here, I make a bit of a misplay. I did not wait my switch clock, because I'm still switch locked, whereas my opponent can now send in the Mandibuzz. So I'm going to need to go for the lunge to help burn my switch timer, tank a move, and then I can send back in the Belly Bolt. And if you remember from earlier, I banked so much energy there. In comes the Belly Bolt. No baits here. I'm going straight for the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon knocks Mandibuzz from the sky. Back in comes the Medicham. Medicham looking for a farm down, and that's going to allow me to make it to another Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon will be guaranteeing the final shield from the Medicham and getting the attack debuff as well. And Ariados should now be at the lunge after that Poison Sting sneaks through. They go for the Psychic. I'm at the lunge, and I believe this will be enough to secure the win. Lunge into the Medicham, leaves them at 1 HP, but thankfully, we get the Poison Sting down. Moving into the next match, and we see a tricky lead, Belly Bolt into Dunsparce. I'm going to save switch into the Dragonair, opponent counter switches into the Froslass. I farm up, and there, my timing was not ideal. Letting an entire Powder Snow sneak through, definitely not what you're hoping to do in this matchup. Could definitely be a little bit of operator error on my end, or it could also just be the game stuttering. Opponent actually running triple Axle on the Froslass, so now they are boosted. So that's a bit unfortunate for Dragonair. Aqua Tail will grab the final shield, but they're going to be able to fire off a boosted Shadow Ball. This is going to do a ton of damage. Froslass already hits quite hard. That boosted Shadow Ball connects, nearly getting the one shot. In comes the Dunsparce. I'm farming up with the Belly Bolt. Belly Bolt, I'm going to need to connect with a Zap Cannon here to deal any meaningful damage, and then I just have to hope that Ariados can do well in the back. I'm firing off this Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon does massive damage. The switch into the Ariados, and it's a simultaneous switch. Ariados into Jellicent. I'm firing off the Trailblaze. Trailblaze, of course, will hit for super effective damage onto the Jellicent. Jellicent continuing to farm. When they go for the Shadow Ball here, they're going to be 3 hexes away from the Surf. And that means they need 9 turns, but I only need 8 turns to make it to the next Trailblaze. This is boosted. I believe this is going to be enough to KO. How close to a move is the Dunsparce? And the Dunsparce gets there. Oh my goodness, this is going to come down to the wire. It's going to be a battle here. Rollout versus Thundershock. Belly Bolt cannot get the farm down, and we lose the game. Picking up a positive lead in the next match, Belly Bolt into Talonflame. I had 2 very good checks for Talon. Opponent save switches into Lickitung. I don't have a good response to a Lickitung save switch. Again, running a spicier team, you're not always going to have good coverage against all the meta threats. So in this instance, I kind of just have to stay in here and fire off the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon probably getting shielded, but what I'm after is that attack drop. It's a 66% chance, and luckily, luck is on our side in this match, as my opponent does get debuffed. This means I can now tank the Body Slam a lot better with the Dragonair. Dragonair farming up and firing off a Body Slam of its own. This will not threaten the Lickitung, so Lickitung can no shield, but this can now potentially set up a 1 shield farm down play for the Dragonair, and Dragonair's energy is universally very valuable. I'm going for the farm down here. Lickitung does not make it to the move. Back in comes the Talonflame. I fire off some Dragon Breaths and go for the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail will hit for a ton of damage to the Talonflame. Talonflame commits the shield, but guess what? Dragonair still not done. Making it to another Aqua Tail, getting them low in the bag. It's a Bubble Ludicolo. I send in the Ariados. Unfortunately, Trailblaze not the most useful here because I can hit for super effective damage with the lunge. Lunge connects, dealing massive damage to Ludicolo. Ludicolo returns fire with a Scald. Scald gets them a debuff of their own. I'm just going to commit to the Poison Sting farm down here. Even if they make a move, that is perfectly fine, because energy on this Ariados isn't particularly helpful. Rather, I would get the energy on the Belly Bolt. In comes the Talonflame, and at this point, opponent realizes they do not have a win con, and they resign the match. We get same leads in the next match here. Belly Bolt into Talonflame, opponent save switches into Credilli, and I'm going to respond with Dragonair. Now, Credilli does win the 0 shield here, so I will have to go down a shield in this matchup, but if I leverage my energy correctly in terms of over-farming, then I can be able to get that shield back from the Talonflame. Opponent is going to be firing off the Rock Slide, that's perfectly fine, and I'm looking to massively over-farm as the Dragonair. Firing off this Aqua Tail, opponent doesn't really have a reason to shield, as I am well over 2 moves. Back in comes the Talonflame, and now I can show the power of Shadow Dragonair. Aqua Tail connects. They have to shield the next move, or this will be lethal. So either I get the shield back, or they're down to 1 Pokemon. They're down to 1 Pokemon in the back. It's their own Dragonair. I send in Ariados, and basically no matter what they were sending in, I was going to bring in the Ariados and just look to debuff them. This is my opponent's final Pokemon remaining in the match, so they no longer have a way to reset these attack debuffs. So I can apply permanent attack debuffs for the rest of the match, and even though Belly Bolt doesn't have a good matchup into the Dragonair, if I lower Dragonair's damage output by 2 stages, it makes that matchup significantly more playable. Perfect mechanics here from my opponent, firing off their energy just before I get to the lunge, and now I can send in the Belly Bolt, and Belly Bolt will be able to make it to the Zap Cannon, and opponent, unfortunately here, with only 1 Pokemon left, no way to reset the debuff. Body Slam, not gonna do much. Belly Bolt gets its revenge on the Dragon types, as Zap Cannon will secure the game. The positive leads continue in the next match, leading Belly Bolt into Skarmory. After all those ground types we saw at the beginning, nice to see a couple of good leads. But man, these normal type save switches are causing this team fits, as I just don't have anything that I can switch into an energy advantage Vigoroth. I'm going to stay in with the Belly Bolt, shield once, and fire off the Zap Cannon. This guarantees massive damage or a shield, gets the shield, and gets the attack debuff. That's a very impactful attack debuff, and now I can send in the Dragonair and no shield. Opponent fires off the Body Slam. That does quite a lot of damage. I'm going to return fire with a Body Slam of my own. This should just about be enough to KO. Leaves the Vigoroth at 1 HP, and the Dragon Breath is able to secure the knockout. Back in comes the Skarmory. Skarmory, unfortunately, is going to get a pretty big energy advantage. Belly Bolt, of course, is going to resist all moves here from the Skarmory, but the unfortunate thing is that a resisted Brave Bird still does a ton of damage, so this could get a bit tough. I'm going to send in the Belly Bolt. I don't really want to shield, but as you can see, I've taken quite a bit of damage already. The Brave Bird connects. I'm queuing up the switch in the back. It's a Whiscash. This is Trailblaze's moment to shine. My opponent is going to be firing off energy here. They go for the Scald. Scald connects and does get the attack drop. I'm farming up and I'm firing off the Trailblaze. Trailblaze is double super effective damage, but it's not the strongest base power. Thankfully, I'm able to reset the attack drop, so now it will be back to its normal power. They go for the Mud Bomb, and I'm going for the Trailblaze. I really need this to KO. Come on, Ariados. Trailblaze into the Whiscash. Big damage, but does not get the KO. Whiscash too bulky, able to withstand that damage. In comes the Belly Bolt, and I'm going to need a perfect overfarm to win this game. I played to the CMP tie here. I'm now 4 off of the discharge. I just have to live 4 Steel Wings from the Skarmory, and the Skarmory takes the win. We've got a tough lead awaiting us in the final match, leading Belly Bolt into Charge Bug. My moveset is completely walled, so I'm going to throw 1 fast move, save switch into Dragonair. Opponent banks an X-Scissor, and now they send in Jellicent. And this is really not great, as Jellicent, of course, does wall the energy from the Dragonair. I fire off the Aqua Tail. The good news is that, of course, the Dragon Breaths are extremely impressive. I'm going to shield here, opponent baits, and they're 2 off the Shadow Ball. I throw on the CMP tie, and I'm just hoping that this KOs. It's going to be so close. Come on, Dragonair. Aqua Tail leaves them at 1 HP, and I made a massive mistake by throwing that move. I could have just double shielded and farmed down, but I thought the Aqua Tail would KO. And to add insult to injury, Charge Bug throws the move right away, and I lose the energy that I had on the Dragonair. Things are just going from bad to worse in this game. I send in the Ariados. I'm going for the Lunge. Lunge will deal some solid damage, but it's not going to be enough to KO. The opponent shields. Okay. That's good to know. It seems like whatever they have in the bag is not a big fan of a potential Ariados. They go for the discharge. I'm farming up, and I'm going for another lunge. Looking to put some pressure onto this Charjabug. Lunge is shielded. I'm going to send in the Belly Bolt in the back. It's Meganium, and my energy is again completely walled. I'm going to fire off the Zap Cannon. This is resisted, but Zap Cannon hits hard on everything. Look at the damage, and I get the debuff as well. The debuff might honestly let me survive an Earthquake here, and it does. Belly Bolt, able to hang on and make it to the discharge. Discharge won't KO, but it is going to get some nice damage onto the Meganium. I need the farm down here with the Ariados. They only make the Frenzy Plant, and this is double resisted. Can it KO? It will not. I get the farm down, and I leave with the lunge. It all comes down to this. Against all odds, did we pull off the win? Lunge KOs the Charjabug, and we win a game we had zero business winning. All in all, Trailblaze is an interesting side grade on Ariados, but unfortunately, it does fail to add any additional meta relevance. Ariados remains as a very cool limited meta Pokemon, and now it has a little bit of extra coverage, which is quite nice, as in potential future limited metas, it can make it a lot more versatile. However, being a bug type is a pretty rough draw of it when it comes to Pokemon Go Battle League. There's not a lot of bug types that have just massive success. So unfortunately, Ariados is kind of relegated to the sidelines of limited metas for the time being. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.